Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm your host, Bonnie Burkert. I'm here to share tools for transformation, to live your highest truth. And what I mean by truth in that context is really what's real for you, and encouraging you to be brave and to believe in all these different possibilities that exist for our highest being in mind, body, and spirit. So today, I'm welcoming from New Zealand, Michelle Carpenter. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Bonnie. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Cheers. I've titled our show Energy Channeling for Trauma Healing. And Michelle has done, works with clients through tapping the energetic body for an understanding of different possibilities, energy blocks that we may be holding to clear grief and trauma. And Michelle, let's talk a little bit about now. I understand you are a student of yoga, or a teacher certified in yoga studies,
yes.
An NLP, neuro-linguistic practitioner as well. And so you definitely approach the body with the physical body, and yet I love that you look holistically at our energy field as well.
Very much so. So those were the studies that I started with many years ago, because I'm originally from Johannesburg, South Africa, and we emigrated to New Zealand just over 6 years ago. And as I've sort of transformed and elevated my consciousness, I've started to see different things in the way I work with clients, and we are energy. There's a very real saying or statement, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I'm really good with bridging the human to the spiritual and the spiritual to the human. And what I mean by that is I've come through a lot of old trauma myself. I'm still working with trauma in my body, something that I didn't realize, ridiculously. I didn't realize until I moved to New Zealand, and a friend said to me, Mish, do you perhaps have PTSD? And I thought, oh my God, I've got to dive into this and discover some more. And my husband and I are still working through quite a lot of old trauma that we experienced in the last 15 years of living in South Africa. But over and above that, yes, my yoga helps. I'm not teaching at the moment. I prefer going to classes, and I'm sort of doing a deep dive into myself and my own healing as much as working with clients. And for me, it's all connected, everything's so interlinked and intertwined in our bodies. And I get guided in the moment in terms of what a person is storing within their unconscious or their subconscious. And I feel what my clients feel in their body. So as an example, if somebody is working with their throat chakra, I would feel as they're sharing a story that there would be a lot of energy that they would be holding within their throat, or they might go, or that they can't get a story out, as they're sharing it with me. And then I'd be guided that perhaps when they were 2 or 3 or 5 years old, that's where we've got to take them back into their bodies. And I like to help the clients get the moment themselves, like that aha moment. Yeah. So it's kind of like they'll take their eyes and they'll go into their body. I'll guide them and say, well, this is what I'm experiencing, or this is what I'm feeling right now, but let's see what you're getting. And then the story unravels, for themselves. And I'm so blessed. I just love what I do, and I work very multidimensionally. And I do a deep dive. I've come to realize I do a real deep dive, and it's like a sponge. We sort of take in the water, and we're like, okay. And for me, the most amazing, honorable, authentic moment when I'm working with somebody is when they allow their fullness of their hearts to expand. And that could come in the form of perhaps crying, like a real big cry, where they haven't allowed themselves to cry. And I just feel an expansion in themselves. Because in the moments of sadness, I have the ability to feel when the heart contracts. It's kind of like it's just a nudging. It's very subtle. And when they allow their vulnerability, that's where the vibration with inside of themselves starts to let go. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it does. I'm really...
Describe like how
I'm really feeling that.
It's just so particular. I work so in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So how does it work for you, being online with people versus the in-person experience? Just what are some comments like that? So much of what we're doing is online right now. How is that for you?
Sure, for sure. The biggest difference is I'm not able to hug the person. Being online, it's exactly the same, and thank you for asking that question, because I get asked this a lot. Well, how is it different? And what I do is it's a teaching of, I call it empowerment as opposed to empowerment. I teach people, I say, well, this is where I'm sensing the energy right now, so I will help them to use their hands, and I'll say, well, let's touch in the lymphatic system, because there's something that's sluggish, and I'm able to really fine tune. I go into their bodies, and the difference would be if somebody's here within my own clinic or my own therapy room, that I would then use my own hands, and I would feel where the energy is needing to move. But I use music, I whistle, I chant in sessions, I use elemental energy that comes through, and that's the difference. I'm just not able to hug in person.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great, though. I'm so glad that you're able to pursue this practice and offer your service to people.
Thank you.
Truly, it's so completely necessary. So let's talk about trauma and holding trauma. And one of the things that I read about you is that you perhaps are exploring distant traumas, intergenerational, I think you refer to it as, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, that's very interesting. You mentioned South Africa, and I don't know if your family's lineage goes back in South Africa.
Yes, and Zimbabwe and my family are Scottish, Dutch, Zimbabwean. I was born in Zimbabwe and then raised in South Africa from a young girl.
Yeah. So, I mean, the things you saw there, I'm sure, it's not the coddled American Midwestern suburban experience. I mean, you're around, it was very foreign. I mean, you're around probably some challenging scenarios that perhaps brought in what people brought it, the parents, family members brought it home. But you may have had that, again, before your immediate family. So what is your understanding of that, and maybe any specific anecdotes you have?
Sure. So being raised in Zimbabwe, which was then Rhodesia, my dad was a soldier in the war. And in my own healing that I'm working through, what I've come to realize, I held on to a lot of my mother's fears with my dad being a soldier. And my parents were young when they had my oldest brother and myself. And again, this is how, in the moment of working spiritually, when we do a deep dive into the body and we go into a specific organ or a specific feeling, sometimes it's not our feelings. Sometimes we go into the body, and I would say to a client, okay, well, what color are you seeing? And they say, well, it's dark and it's murky. And I say, okay, well, let's ask, what's the feeling or feelings that come up? And it might be resentment, abandonment, rejection, anger, frustration, all low vibrational feelings. And as soon as they're going deeper into their bodies, or I've gone deeper into my own body, I've realized that the fear is not mine. They would say, I'll say, well, is this your mother's? Is this your father's? And they say, oh, this is confusing. Yeah. This isn't my feeling. Yeah. This is my mother's. And I say, okay, well, is it your mother's or your grandmother's? And they say, Michelle, I'm being shown that this isn't mine. I'm holding on to something that isn't mine. And that's where the aha moment happens. So that's the intergenerational trauma that we can absolutely store and hold onto. I have a very beautiful way of explaining it is, as a baby, we grow inside our mother's womb and we feel all the feelings. We call them different names, and trauma, as I'm sure you know, is a very highlighted thing that we're holding on to right now. And it's great because it's kind of like the sirens are going, what are we storing, guys? Come on, let's shift. Let's help ourselves to shift. Let's help ourselves to heal. Because as we help ourselves to heal, and those lower vibrational feelings are held within the body, they're stored. And the more we let them go, the more we let go into and become our lightness of who we are as beings of light.
Yeah.
But the more we hold on, we contract. And sometimes, like I say, just in the letting go, the fear that I was holding on to. So this is an example from my own experience. I had a very real, a teacher actually from California took me into my liver the once. And I remember sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And this was my understanding of what I remember. And was my dad driving. And, in those years, we didn't have seat belts or car chairs, baby car chairs. So we were just sitting in the back of the car. And I remember seeing my dad's knuckles on the steering wheel, like being white. And I just remember picking up on this dreaded, I could call it fear, but it was just this like my parents weren't breathing kind of thing. And the more I went into my liver and the more she unraveled the layers, she's like, well, Michelle, what are you noticing? And I remember being 2. And I said to her, well, it feels like my parents aren't breathing. And it was a convoy that my parents were in because, this was what happened in Zimbabwe when the change was happening and Mugabe took over. We used to drive in convoy where we had a truck in the front, an army truck, and then, there would be 100-odd cars and an army truck at the back, and soldiers were leading us from one space to the next. That's how I remember it. And I said to my dad, Dad, do you remember this? And he's like, no, I don't remember what you're talking about. That was my very real experience of what I held on to. And through breath work, and again, having this big cry and helping my little 2-year-old to feel safe. That was the biggest thing. And as you, I'm assuming, as you know, with working with yoga and doing yoga, so much affects us as a kid. So much affects our brain and our development as a child. And I know, being taken back into my mother's womb, I carried all the old, again, fear, anxiety that she carried. And this is, again, the work in progress that I'm going through in myself. And the more I've helped my nervous system, the more I've helped myself work through breath and my clients work through breath. I know we all want a quick fix. I most certainly wanted it for freaking years. Yes. I'm like, what? There's more work to be done. Yeah. And, a client would say to me, Michelle, I've done this before. And I say, well, think of 2 years old. It's a long time for a little 2-year-old to hold on to all these fearful. That's one memory. True. One memory, Bonnie, that I remember. I can mention many more, but, just think of how we are programmed and what we're holding on to. And, I like to describe it as, it's the nudging. And as we let go of the unfolding of those stored memories, the neurons shift. The solar plexus, our nervous system, we take it from the sympathetic into the parasympathetic. And this is something that, again, I'm still learning to do, because as soon as I have something happen to one of my kids or my husband, or my dog barks or my kids give me a fright, I've had to say to my children, stop waiting around the corner, because I just lose, excuse my language, but I just lose my shit. I'm like, just stop, because I just go straight into that sympathetic, and I'm like, okay, Michelle does, okay, just breathe, Michelle, just breathe, My son thinks it's the best thing ever, because my husband and I are just always on, but it's, we've had to learn over time to just relax, learn to breathe, learn to just walk at a different pace. So there's so much. I could just share so much with you. And yes, Zimbabwe and living in the apartheid era, but fast forwarding to when we were kids and teenagers, the change of South Africa, the crime that we've experienced is something we're still working through.
Very much so. And I'm glad that you're doing that work, because how many people aren't and try to self-medicate to forget, and not understanding why they don't feel well. And why they're not
Yes.
happy in life on lots of levels, or they're in their relationship. And I think as we get older, maybe those kind of things bubble up, or we're not able to just escape into work or entertainment. I think as we mature, maybe we do need to reflect
Absolutely.
back and try to clear. I mean, my word of 2022 is clarity. And it could be
Nice.
clarity of purpose, but it could also be, I feel like, clarity in the vessel too. And one of the things that you mentioned is the continual work that's required, and on a lot of different levels. Now,
For sure.
you are a guide to work with people, right? So you help
Correct.
people kind of
Yes, I do.
excavate. So what was it like for you when you were getting started and you didn't have anybody necessarily showing you how to do this? How did this begin for you?
Are you talking about the channeling as such, or just the work that I started on myself?
I guess I would like to ask, what came first, the channeling or the work, the energetic work, the energetic release,
The
the trauma
energetic
release?
work came first.
Okay.
So I had a very pivotal moment in my life when I was 24, where I believe my guides were wanting to wake me up, where I knocked over and killed a young girl. I was a sales rep for many, many years, and I was driving, and I had a cool drink in between my legs, and I put a straw, or trying to put a straw into the cool drink. And I was on my side of the road, and she ran, and I didn't know what I hit because I was looking down. And I suppressed that for many, many
Oh,
years.
I can imagine.
Fast forward 9 years later, this is what happened in the same year. I went through a really bad breakup. This guy and I had built a house together. 3 months later, he was very verbally abusive, and it started to become physical. And I'd known him for most of my life. 2.5 months later, I was made redundant after being headhunted by this company. And 2 months after that, so that was July, October, all in the same year. In December, I knocked over and killed a young girl. 2 days later, I was driving down from Johannesburg to Cape Town, which is a 12-hour drive in the car, going on this rip-roaring party, met my then ex-husband on Christmas Day. So the accident happened on the 15th of December. The 25th of December, I met my now ex-husband. 2 months later, after meeting him, we were engaged, which was so fairy tale in my world. Beautiful. Yay, I'm living my fairy tale. Poor guy. I don't know what the hell he was taking on or thinking at the time. My commiserations to him. But he was a big part of my wake-up call, because 8 months later we were married. And my nervous system was so out of whack. I mean, I think I was off the charts, pretty screwed, and very traumatized by those were a few of the experiences, not even realizing how, as a young girl, I was sexually abused, how that affected me. My parents were big party goers. My dad drank because of his own intergenerational trauma, plus being in the Rhodesian War. So this is all the levels and layers that we're talking about. And a friend gave me the beautiful late Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life.
Yes.
And I remember sort of paging through it and going, oh, what shit is this? I don't want, this is too much. I'm not ready to work with this. But my ex-husband did me the biggest, or gave me one of the biggest gifts. We'd moved to London, and we'd had a baby girl. And this was 4 years after being married with him, to him. And I then moved back to South Africa. He stayed in London. And just in between a year and a half of time, he didn't move back to South Africa. And my mom had noticed the similarities of how my dad had had affairs when we were young kids. And my mom said, he's having an affair, Michelle. I was like, no, he's not. This is him. This is Rico. You'd never cheat on me. But he did me the best thing ever. Well, sorry, that's not great English. He actually helped me by actually repeating this pattern that my grandfather had with my mother, my grandmother, my dad had gone through, and I'd gone through. I was the change bringer, though. I just decided not to stay. So when I found out he had cheated on me, I got this book, this beautiful book. I'd paged through it, but my anger was so deep, Bonnie, so deep. I was so triggered, and the more stressed I believed I was, the better I learned, so I thought, to cope in life. And then I realized with my baby girl, I've got to do something different. So I went to go see a clairvoyant. And this guy just said to me, Michelle, you don't know how to love yourself. And that it just infuriated me even more, because I was just like, just fix my anger, dude. Just fix my anger. I never turned to drugs. You know, I used to drink, I used to party hard, but not to the extreme of going down a space of, you know, that becoming my addiction. My addiction was drama. That was one of my addictions. How could I create more drama? How could I fix people? How could I rescue people? And that then led me onto a weekend away of which hospice where I lived had bought this beautiful retreat together. And I met a wonderful facilitator in my life who then became my counselor for many, many years. And interesting enough, she had very similar paths of being sexually abused, ex-husband cheating on her, just also knocking over and killing a young girl. And she helped me. It was just profound, you know, it was one of those synchronous moments. And she really helped me that weekend was about me knocking over and killing the young girl. And I don't know if you've ever had the experience, Bonnie, where you've cried so hard that it feels like your head's going to split open.
Oh, gosh, that's hard.
That was what happened that weekend. And I had massage therapists massaging my head, and I was taking, you know, headache tablets. I was just beyond the grief of what I was carrying for 9 years of knocking over and realizing I'd taken a young girl's life.
9 years.
9 years just suppressed, and I just kept going, you know. So like I say, blessings to my ex-husband for cheating, because it brought me to a place where I started to take back myself, and I started to realize, like, whoa, I've got work to do.
Wow.
And then I went into this deep dive, neuro-linguistic programming, you know, yoga teacher training, channeling. And as I was working on myself, I started to realize that there's more. There's more to life. And that's when I started to connect. I started to connect with spirit. And it took me a long time I still get triggered. That's part of me being a human being. Come and be a fly on my wall and see my children not make the beds in the morning. I'm like, oh, how many more times? How many more times do I have to repeat myself, you know? But my triggers, and I do not take things as personally as I used to, because so that's part of my development. You know, I deep dived into Louise Hay then. I was counseled many, many times. My yoga teacher training brought up a lot of my sexual abuse, the trauma of sexual abuse, the level of forgiving myself as a little girl, then having to forgive my parents, then having to forgive my teenager who was so angry. You know, I manifested bladder infections, bronchitis, throat infections. My body was just showing me continuously, but I just didn't want to wake up. I just didn't want to wake up. So this young soul that I collided with was a huge part of my journey for me to wake up to myself. And as I slowly but surely, again, you know, the only way I can describe it is the bridge of my human and letting go so much of every single step. And I just manifested beautiful people, beautiful moments of my biggest teachers, I have to be honest, are the ones that have pushed my buttons the most.
Okay.
Where I want to tell them to F off, like just get the F out of my space, man. Those are my biggest teachers.
Tough love, like, baby.
Tough love. Cruel to be kind, and kind to be cruel, you know. But they've been they've been the ones that have made me dive deep, where I've gone, okay, man, this is clearly, they're in my space for a reason, because they believe in me, and they help me to start believing in myself and my self-worth. And slowly but surely, the bridge of letting go, or taking the next step, the next baby step, the next baby step, the next baby step, I started to elevate my consciousness. And I started to realize there was more. There was more to what I thought in this human experience. So coming to New Zealand and immigrating was also a massive part of my huge shift. And we went to Queenstown. Did you go to Queenstown when you visited New Zealand?
I did, yes. It was absolutely beautiful.
You know how magnificently beautiful those mountains are, and they just hold intense vibration, intense, I can't, they just hold. And they help you to really shift. And I came to New Zealand over 6 years ago, and I used to describe myself as I just fell to pieces. I got into a very depressive space, but I got up every morning, made sure my kids had lunch. I never stayed in bed. I was just never that kind of person. I kept crawling forward. I never let myself go. I always put makeup on, washed my hair. I never went onto antidepressants. I was suggested when I knocked over and killed the young girl in South Africa to go onto antidepressants. But my grandmother had many nervous breakdowns, and I just chose not to. And that was my deep dive. And that's why I honor people when they're like, okay, what do we need to do, Michelle?
Well, and how brave of you to look at it, Michelle, because rather than taking tablets, which so many people do, again, that's depressing. You're not healing anything. So
sure.
As you describe all of this, I mean, again, I love the term deep dive. It's something that I use regularly. And one of the other things that I also am hearing from you is listening to the body and an understanding of physical ailments, having that emotional connection. And I feel there's not enough study in that. There's not enough awareness of that. Even day by day, I mean, I've just gone through a last week of just inexplicable aches, body aches. I'm like, why does my leg hurt? I didn't do anything to it. But I had a friend who channeled actually information for me, left side, receiving, things like that. So I want that to be one of the takeaways from this conversation is the understanding that when our body is off, there's a message.
100%. And this is something that I was a dancer from the age of 4 till the age of 23, 24 years old. And I'm very good with my musicality and the way I present myself. But for many, many years, and I found this out a few weeks ago, so it's a beautiful time to share this. A friend of mine who's a therapist and she works with the body, I said to her, do you ever wonder why I couldn't jump? Like I was never a light-bodied dancer or ballerina. I was always heavy. And we came to discover over years that I just carried so much anger and heaviness in my thighs and my hip area. And it was because of my sexual abuse. I held on to a secret, a very deep secret. And I never shared it with anybody because I didn't know there was anything wrong. So absolutely, but yet in me getting tonsillitis, me getting bronchitis, me having bladder infections for many, many years, it was all the stored anger and deep, deep sadness I was holding on to for not being seen, not nurtured, not loved. You see how, again, it's so multi-leveled and multi-layered. And a big part of the body is, like you said, just listening, just being quiet. I didn't know how to be quiet because I was always busy, on. And a big part of my healing is working with my knees. And again, when I jumped in ballet, I was always heavy. So my knees took such a pounding for such a long time. And of course, something's got to give. And my knees were part of you haven't listened. And I didn't know how to listen. Now imagine if this was taught to young kids. Yeah. Listen to your bodies, guys, or taught to parents. Often a mother would phone me and say, can you see my child? And I'll say, let me work with you and your husband first.
Ah, interesting.
Because what is the kid picking up on? We just feel energy as children. We just feel, that's why children with Asperger's and autism are just in feeling. They just feel vibration. They feel frequency. And then we think they're off the charts, but they're not. They're just in feeling.
They're evolved. They're probably
100%.
Kind of our new human.
100%.
Oh my God, there's so much to talk about. And please, I mean, again, it's, I send you all my healing when I hear about your sexual trauma and what you've been through.
Thank
and
you.
Really, you've come through it like a star. And again, very, very brave. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, I again titled the show about the channeling.
Yes.
And so I would love to know this, and I want to actually mention here that you work with the Council of Eight. These are guides that come through you. Yes. Interestingly, one of the other guests that I've had on the show, Ginger Pullman, she recently just talked to me about the Council of Eight. It was the weirdest thing, and how that.
Wow.
So I just wanted to say that's a funny coincidence, and I'm quite curious to understand a little bit more about this. I have been a recipient of channeled messages probably since the 90s, a long time ago now, that I didn't understand what was happening, and yet I'm just very blessed that messages come through for me through
Yes.
special people in my life. So please tell me about your experience. And again, this is an opportunity for people to work with you one-on-one to experience it for themselves specifically.
So the Council of Eight started coming to me in sessions with clients, and it was very different to me connecting with a loved one who had passed over. And I started asking, well, who are you? And they would come to me and show me that they were different energies, and one being Lady Diana, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, and Mother Mary. And I was like, whoa, okay, whoa. And I started to close my eyes, and I become this it's like Michelle, the personality goes out the way, and they come directly through me. And they're not eight beings of light. They are from the 15th dimension. They're angelic beings of light, and they shift. Sometimes they're Palladian, sometimes they're Octarian, sometimes they're Syrian. And I've gone into their spaceship. I've actually met the commander, and they've shown me they will navigate and help us as humanity. And I've asked them, please, I like simple messages. Can we please keep it simple, and can we help anybody on their journey of transformation? And I feel incredibly blessed. I mean, the way they describe things is so simple. When, I will help a client, and we work very multi-leveled and multi-layered in a session. And at times they'll say, Michelle, can I have a channeling? And then the Council of Eight will come through me, I'll channel, and then the Council of Eight will say, we're going to hand over to Michelle now. We're going to ask her to come back because we feel that there's something that we can work, or she can help you with, that you're storing subconsciously and with your feelings. And that's where I might use music. But sometimes, though, I'll stay in it, and they'll whistle or they'll chant through me. And there's this beautiful, angelic, oh my gosh, what comes through me is like, whoa. Afterwards, I go, whoa, where did that come from? But it's just such a high pitch. And, we are vibration. Yeah. And so I feel honored because they just give the most profound messages. And they would love to, connect with you if we do have time. Because I'm sort of, even though I'm looking at you right now, I'm so out there in the field. And they would love to share a message with you and your listeners.
Please. Thank you. Right when you started talking about it, I heard this high-pitched ring in my ear. You know how that happens sometimes? So yes. I think they're around.
Okay, awesome. So just give me a few seconds. I'm just going to breathe and close my eyes. We are ready. We welcome you today, Bonnie and Tony, to this very wonderful reconnection of so much. What we say to you is we want to applaud you for the connection to source, to self. As many humans are not noticing or are forgetting their connection in this lifetime to source, to God, to divine, to the all-knowing. As we come through Michelle, we are all connected. Not one is disconnected from one another. So what we say to you today is we are what we would term, or you humans would term, excited. We are here to walk with humanity, to bring a source of awareness of different spaces of consciousness, different states of beings, different noticings, different knowings, different understandings, different awarenesses. Do you hear, Bonnie, how it is all the same, yet it is all different in the awarenesses of words? Many humans have been displaced from here and discombobulated. Yes, humans are taught that thought is everything, yet what we say to you and your viewers today is that soul is everything, source is everything, knowing is from here. If one does not have a beating heart, how does one move forward in life? How does one connect? The heart is the soul of the body, is it not?
Yes.
Do you have a question for us, please?
How do we work through the fear that is around us through media, the fear of our ailing planet, and the way that we can't seem to get along as humans?
This is a great question, and what we say to anybody, including yourself, is that there is a noticing of the lower frequencies. When one is in a lower frequency, one is, as Michelle was describing it, contracted. One is holding on, one is storing. And it is as simple as asking your body to breathe. We describe this, and we have described this many times, as this is your meat suit. This is the interconnectedness to all that is. Yet when one is contracted, and we were going to use the words constructed, as a lot of what the fear is about has been constructed. And it is as simple as shaking it off. Is it as simple as shaking it off? Is it as simple as taking a big, expanded, spaceful breath? As if we were to talk to you like this, and we were to say to you, could you understand what we are saying? Because we are just creating a disharmony within the frequency, and this is where humans are sitting, and this is what we are saying to you right now, is that humans are creating a lot of inverted, fractionated, fear-based feelings. So we would ask to take a big breath in. And as you are exhaling, exhale the word fear. Exhale the word contraction. And as you are inhaling, inhale breath. Inhale love. Inhalo. Simple, is it not?
It is, yes.
We would love to do a frequency tuning for you, for your body, if we may. Yet we are going to ask Michelle to quickly switch something on with her computer, if that may be okay, please.
Of course. Yes, please.
I just want to, there's a setting on Zoom I have to switch quickly. Okay. So, we are back. We would like to bring you to bring attention to those parts of your bodies where you are holding on within the contracted space, Bonnie. And as you bring attention to those spaces, we would love to send a vibration to those spaces to help the expansion, if that would be okay.
Yes, please.
One more, please. A big inhale. Your body enjoyed this very much, did it not?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
We thank you. Is there any other questions for us today?
I would like to ask a question just about self-healing, and maybe some words that would be something that people can do every single day to feel this lightness that you've just provided.
What we say to you as humans is self-healing is as simple as taking one's shoes off and standing on the ground, standing on the grass, standing in the sand, standing in the puddles when it rains. We would say to you, when last have you noticed children? Children have a childlike innocence about themselves. And it is as simple as that. It is finding the joy in the moment, in time. Presence, not being present. Presence is in the moment. It is as simple as taking Michelle's hands and placing her hands over her heart beating. It is as simple as smiling at another human being. So, if you were to connect with Michelle and Michelle was frowning, there would be a vibrational space in time where you would wonder if she is okay, would you not?
Yes.
Yet when humans smile at other humans, many humans feel uncomfortable. They do not know what to do in that moment. Yet, when you start to smile at one another, the vibration is shifting. It is that simple. Humans, we find, like to make life complicated. What can we do? 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 What else can we do? What else can we do? What else? It is about this very moment of stillness, of being in. We hope this makes sense.
Very much.
We thank
That's
you.
powerful.
We thank you. We feel as if we are complete for today. And we acknowledge all the wonderful connections and wonderful sharings that you are collaborating and bringing harmony to the very busy minds of many humans who are seeking. We send you blessings of light. Namaste, Bonnie.
Namaste. Namaste, Divine Council. We'll give Michelle a moment to come back and breathe. And oh my gosh, that was so amazing. And Tony Sweet is here in the studio and received that as well. And we're both very, very grateful. Michelle, thank you. It's divine work. And you know, I will tell you, the first time, well, it wasn't the first person I heard channel, but the second person I ever heard channel, one of the first, was Judy Satori, who's from New Zealand. I don't know if you know her. So
No,
I think
okay.
that there's something really special about where you are, and it sounds like in your journey when you got there, things really, really exploded for you. And I really appreciate you sharing your gifts with us so that we could get a feel for the work that you do. It's just a special treat that we don't always get on transformation, but I think it's essential. And it's really about the new earth and the energies that are changing on our planet. And you're a light worker right here for us.
Well, can I share something with you, please?
Please, of course.
There's a very good friend of mine, Jill Cole, and she hypnotizes me. And yesterday, in the channeling, we got shown to call each other star shines. And that because she had asked a question about how we'd both had this kind of story appear, and for both of us, where somebody had said something very negative to her, and I'd heard about something that was being said negatively about me, and it affected both of us, different stories, but both affected us. It was just not ideal. But that's part of the human experience. So Jill had asked, like, how come we had brought this into our space? And they had said, and this was interesting because the beings that I was channeling was the Galactic Federation of Arc.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of them before, neither had Jill. And it was fascinating because they'd shared with us, well, stars are light and they're bright. Yet, in order for us to see the light and the bright at night, we need the dark.
Yeah.
And it was just so like, oh my God, that's just so, of course we need the dark.
Right, exactly.
So,
such the aha.
Exactly. And I just thought, wow, we are light workers. We're stars shining, all of us. And that's what I would love to say to anybody who's listening. We all are worth being on these journeys. We are all here to be light workers or stars shining. I don't like to give up on anybody or point a finger at anybody, because we're all on our journeys of whatever we may be. And it's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. Some people just aren't wanting to perhaps work on themselves, and it's not good or bad, it just is, because some people are just in blind fear. Right. They get so scared, and that's why I really like to share a bit of my journey to say, holy shit, if I can do it, anybody else can.
Oh, Michelle, no, it's lovely. And it's really, really powerful. Thank you. There's so much to discover here and learn. And I really appreciate your time. I think this was a little bit of a spontaneous interview for Michelle to join me today. And I'm so grateful. There's so much there. And Thanksgiving for you. We're about to have Thanksgiving in the USA, so I'm saying Thanksgiving for you.
To everybody. Thank you.
All right, we look forward to being in touch.
Have a beautiful week. Thank
Everybody,
you, Bonnie. Thank you,
find Michelle. Okay,
Bye.
That's great. Wow, that was really amazing. I'm still feeling that energy is really powerful. So I'm going to wrap it up with gratitude for all of our listeners, and it was we're really here to help things lighten up on this planet. Remember that Tony Sweet has a live show every Friday at 3 p.m. And Robert Hemsley has the Minuteman Report, also live on Mondays at 3 p.m. Pacific, too. And I will have a new episode for you each week myself. Stay tuned for the Parapod Festival that's going to be happening here in Southern California, April 31st April 1st. There is no April 31st. We're blaming Michelle Carpenter. She got me. I'm intergalactic right now. That would be April 1st, March 31st, and April 1st in Santa Clarita, which is really close to the Los Angeles area. So check out our website for more info. That's the Parapod Festival. Again, I'm Bonnie. Thank you for listening. Please share and follow and spread the word. And to echo what Michelle said, shine on, everyone.